This is the between part 7, I believe, which is pretty awesome. Let's do a recap of last time. If I recall correctly, we were in a day phase. We were in the middle of a day phase, and I kind of want to just continue that day phase when we get started. But let's just look at the threats that are active right now. That is still the coven. Another threat is figs, pigs, and then we have the creature of Cremorne Gardens. So the coven, the question has been answered. At this point, you just need to go to the hidden reservoir beneath the Crystal Palace and do battle with them or stop them, right? You have 2 more night phases left to do that. Figs, pigs, this is the one where there are 3 loose fig family members, these cannibal pie makers, and these questions are all like you have to answer each one of them and do each one of them in order to resolve the threat. They're all just how do we capture these people, right? You have 4 clues currently. There was a body whose organs were reversed. You found in the pie shop a dog collar and leash sized for a large neck. There was a large collection of torn opera tickets in the flat that they live in. And there was a tattoo that matches the tattoo found on the piece of flesh in the pie that was given to Mr. Turner. It was an anchor. And I can't quite recall where that new tattoo was found. I assume it was somewhere in, it had to be somewhere in the house, right? Because that's where we saw.
No, we saw a tattoo on somebody in the Turkish baths.
That's right. Okay, thank you. I was wondering where that came from. Right, awesome, thank you. And yeah, so that's the story with that right now. The creature of Cremorne Gardens. This is the one where there is an alleged fishman creature terrorizing pleasure seekers at the Cremorne Gardens, which is sort of like a Victorian era theme park, sort of. And people claim that the fishman can sing a hypnotic song that lures them to the end of the pier, because Cremorne Gardens is on Chelsea Harbor. That could just be hysteria. But in any case, that is this sort of clue. That's the thing going on right now. There's a threshold question here, which is quite simply, is this fish creature real or is it a hoax? That's the first thing you have to sort out with this one. And we have no clues so far on the creature of Cremorne Gardens, but I believe folks were kind of heading towards Cremorne Gardens for this day phase. So we'll kind of get to that. Let's go to the hunters. Just tell us your conditions and kind of anything else that you want to have us be reminded about your character. Let's start with Willoughby.
So Willoughby's conditions, I only have one, and I am still haunted by the foreign sons described to the man who was wearing a sun mask by the dead bodies in the bottom of the Limehouse. I'm still haunted by that. Other than that, conditions remain the same. I did take a new, is it a feat? A new move,
Yeah.
last time, and it is memory is the servant. During the dawn phase, you may tell the keeper you are claiming a memento, which can be added to which any object from the scene recently concluded night phase, you can then add that into your inventory or give it to another hunter. So I'm excited to see that.
And if you give it to another hunter, I think you get an XP, right?
When they check it, yes, I do.
Oh, is that right? No, I think they just get it for giving it to them.
Really?
I think so. They just add to their personal quarters and they mark XP, or you mark XP and they get to add it to their personal quarters. So
very cool.
Awesome, thank you. Let's go to the mother, Dr. Tagore.
Alrighty. My conditions are still fascinated by the witch puppetry from when they assaulted Hargrave House. And I chalked up telegraph lines. And guilt over thwarting my competitor during that Janus Mask Destroy Rivals creature. What else? Still working on building the child. That's the gist of it right now.
Fabulous, yeah. It looks like you are not quite halfway towards that, but pretty close. And Good, awesome, cool. Let's go to Mr. Gennadios.
He's still feeling a little exposed as his Hargrave House compatriots are starting to catch on that something's a little weird about him.
Indeed, indeed. How is the masterwork doing in terms of scars?
Quarter of the way there.
Yeah, not bad.
too
You could push those villainous moves a little bit more. I think you
Yep.
got a lot of space to do that. Let's go to Mr. Ives or Mr. Turner. Sorry.
Mr. Turner has the condition most beloved for all eternity. I'm one away on the XP track to get another move. And I have I want to come to face with an encounter with a dark entity and perform a dark ritual this time around.
Mm-hmm. We shall see how that goes. Yeah, your advancements are your next move advancement is the custom one. So if you take that one, you still got space to increase your modifiers though. So
And uncheck my inventory.
yeah, no, that's another big one too. I would like start using everything in the inventory. Fabulous. So we're in the day phase. I think what I want to do is just go around the table and just kind of be reminded what everybody wants to do, and then we'll frame up some scenes and do that. So let's go in reverse order. So Mr. Turner, I think we last saw you at the bathhouse, right?
Yes.
What do you want to do after that?
I wouldn't mind heading to, I can't remember if I said that I shouldn't go to that that place that fired me as a magician or not. If I shouldn't go there, then maybe I'll see about hunting some pigs.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I would say, on the other hand, you do have the connection, right? You know the proprietor of the place, even though you may not be on great terms. So
yeah, thank you for coming. Goodbye.
What specifically would you do to go investigate the figs?
I
can tell you what we know about them so far. Basically, the main place to go search is the pie shop. Like that's the you could also theoretically go see Mr. Fig at Bedlam, right? Which is the insane asylum, because he's there. So that's an option as well.
Can I tell us another idea that might work?
Yeah.
I was questioning essentially to try and figure out if their meat is sourced from a slaughterhouse or not, by investigating regional slaughterhouses, waiting for deliveries, talking to Scotland Yard perhaps, and also possibly purloining more body parts for me.
Yeah, absolutely. They might also just be like, honestly, sourcing all their meat from people they kidnap.
Right, and so that's kind of if Mr. Turner wants to stake it out with me or go that route.
If you go to all the slaughterhouses and no one's done any business with the figs, it probably tells you something about them. Okay, well, so we might come back to that. We'll kind of figure it out in a minute. Mr. Janius, what are you thinking?
Well, Alexander and Willoughby were on their way to the Cremorne Gardens, so.
Indeed. So Willoughby, if you're cool with continuing with that, we shall do that.
Fishman.
Let's do Cremorne Gardens. So I think when you get there, it's probably like the afternoon. People are really just starting to kind of arrive and like kind of enjoy the place. There is a lot to see here. This sort of central feature of Cremorne Gardens is the dancing platform, which is this massive pagoda that at night can actually it has capacity for like 4,000 dancers. Like, it's so big. It's this huge like dancing platform. That's the sort of central feature of Cremorne Gardens. But there's a promenade with like well manicured lawns and things. There's a banqueting hall. There's an American bowling saloon that you can go to. There's a hedge maze. And then also a lot of people will spend time on the nearby street, which is called Chain Walk, which is kind of like a budding artist colony, right? And so that's sort of Cremorne Gardens in a nutshell. And I think when you arrive there, there's also, I should also mention that there are like high wire acts going on, as well as balloon lifts, or what we call it, like, you know, people going up in balloons, hot air balloons. And I think when you arrive, you actually, like, the first thing you're aware of is this rapturous like applause from a crowd as this large gold and red hot air balloon is rising up, and everybody on the observation deck is just like, you know, kind of like, you know, just cheering, you know, wildly. And everyone's in a great mood. They're in a really good mood. I will tell you that we have another aspect of the Janus mask while you're investigating Cremorne Gardens, or the creature of Cremorne Gardens. It's called the Mask of Revelry. So that's in play if somebody needs to do the Janus mask. But I guess at this point, I would just ask Mr. Gennadios, what do you do?
The pier that this thing is associated with, is there an activity that's closest to the pier?
Sure. That would probably be, I would have to, I'm just kind of making this up, to be honest, but I would probably say it's probably the promenade, like all the people like walking on the lawns, you know, because you can come directly from the pier into Cremorne Gardens and kind of do the promenade. So
seems like a good place to start.
Willoughby, what are you going to do?
I wouldn't mind sharing a vulnerable move if we maybe promenade and kind of like take a lap around and see what there is to see before
Yeah,
we
that sounds
start
great. Yeah, let's do
zoning
that.
in. Mhm.
Yeah, let's do that. I assume you brought some brandy.
Actually, when I went into Mr. Turner's witch's cabinet, in addition to the lavender ash that I'm now using to protect myself from witches, I also found a bottle of absinthe that I may have kept for myself in order to share with Mr. Gennadios today.
Okay, very good, very good. I love it. Let's do a paint the scene question about the promenade. So essentially this is like a series of well manicured lawns, very neatly ordered flower beds, and quite ancient trees that just have this sort of like, you know, build this like canopy overhead. It's very, very pleasant. I would say that apart from that, you see something truly beautiful along the promenade, Willoughby and Mr. Gennadios. What is it? You can say something different if you wish.
In the center of the hedge maze is maybe a 10 to 14 foot tall wooden structure that is just built entirely out of flowers in the shape of a seahorse.
I love it. Thank you.
There's a big circular and quite ornate fountain in the center of the grassy area, and it is just in the sun, the water's sparkling, people are sitting around it. It looks almost like something out of a painting.
Nice. We'll come back to the scene. Let me cut back over to Mr. Turner and well, first let's sort out Mr. Turner and Mr. Tagore. Did you go together wherever you're going, or did you split up after the baths?
Yeah, how do you feel, Fraser?
I'm fine to hop along to your.
We want to go to Bedlam and pester Mr. Fig?
Sure, I'm fine with either of the going to Bedlam or to your idea about the slaughterhouses.
Let's do Bedlam first.
We could even just ask the police about the meat sourcing or something too.
Yeah, you actually have Scotland Yard's help on this one. It's the rare case that you're kind of working with Scotland Yard on it. So where to?
Bedlam, is it?
Yeah, in a way, I feel like even though the slaughterhouse idea is sort of visually appealing, we already know the answer. There's tattoos.
Yeah, I strongly recall that.
Yeah, there's no doubt they were making people into pies. That is not in question at all. Bedlam, its proper name is Bethlehem Royal Hospital. And I thought I had to paint the scene here, but apparently I don't. I must have just made that up in my mind. Oh no, I do. I'm talking about that too. So Bethlehem Royal Hospital, the thing about Bethlehem Royal Hospital is sometimes it's surprisingly clean, other times it's not. You will see nurses and doctors sort of dashing to and fro, and perhaps disturbingly, you will hear quite a lot of wailing and sort of chattering coming from like deep within the hospital, right? And I paint the scene question for you both. As you sort of enter the hospital, you see nurses and doctors with the various patients. In your estimation, this could also be based off just what you know about the place. In your estimation, are the patients treated well or treated poorly? And why do you think this?
I think they're treated poorly, and it's because when we pass pipes, I hear people banging spoons and cups and stuff against it.
Nice. That happened in Maravi's town.
I'm also picturing the exception to the rule that there's a nurse passing by frequently with a change of linen bandages who seems very concerned about doing their job well to make sure that at least their physical body is cared for.
You are met by a Dr. Rodney Walters, who is a sort of head physician here at Bethlehem. You probably know him, Dr. Tagore. You're at least as a maybe not like well, but like, you know, professionally, I suppose. He has a head of luxurious silver hair, and he's holding a pipe with a sort of Flying Dutchman ghost pirate ship kind of carving in it, you know, or sort of carved in that shape. And he has this very what I would describe as a very clean smell, almost like an antiseptic smell, right? And he says, Dr. Tagore, yes?
Yes, it's been a while. I'm surprised you remember me at all.
Well, you know, I remember the work you used to do at Academy. You had some very, very interesting ideas about the nature of life and death, as I recall.
Oh, and more to reveal on that soon.
Yes, I think we're
Hope
all
to give a lecture in the near future.
We're all very interested to see how that's progressing, Dr. Tagore. So, what brings you here to my humble sanitarium?
Oh, I work with Scotland Yard from time to time, and there's a patient you have, Mr. Fig, who we'd like to consult with for a bit, if we may.
Oh, Mr. Fig. Oh, well, I have to warn you, Mr. Fig has been mostly non-responsive. He just sings his little song whenever you ask him for anything. It's a fascinating case, though, really. I don't think any of the literature I've ever read has covered someone who has seemingly lost the capacity for speech, and yet who, almost on command, will sing a song about his family. And then you add in the cannibalism thing, and well, it's really an interesting case. Someone needs to write an article, and well, it might as well be me, right?
Definitely, I hear music does tame savage beasts. This seems quite the case.
Oh, well. And who's your friend?
Oh, Mr. Turner. Goodness, what to say about, this dashing, individual here. He seems to always be there to assist at just the right moment.
Mr. Turner, Mr. Turner, I gather you're not a doctor then?
Not quite. I'm just taking a interest in the subject matter at this time.
Yes, yes. That's what led me to my vocation, and it's what led me to the academy. I have a keen interest in the human mind and the human condition. And, well, the inmates here are most fascinating. Yes, you're certainly welcome to go see Titus Fig, but like I said, you're not going to get much out of him.
There's no way you have been able to coax him?
No, I'm afraid not. He is, well, sometimes I feel like he actually really misses his family, which I find to be another incredible aspect of his personality. The fact that he seems to have a genuine affection for these ghoulish people.
Have you tried speaking to him at mealtime?
What a wit you have, Mr. Turner. Here, I'll take you myself. And he leads you down a hall to Titus Fig's cell. Let's go back to Cremorne Gardens. Let's just have that scene, that vulnerable move scene.
Shall we, forgive me, shall we promenade?
Seems the appropriate place for it.
And I pull out the flask and I say, unfortunately, I haven't been able to resupply any brandy as of late. However, it does seem that Mr. Turner has got under your skin, so I hope this brings you a little joy. I stole it out of his witch's cabinet and passed the flask over.
I am ever amused by the simple things.
Well,
when
go ahead.
Especially when it is not in Mr. Turner's favor.
Well, I hope that it does bring a little ease to this. It seems so idyllic here. It seems strange that anything would be coming out of the shadows.
The shadowy creatures are all about us, even when it doesn't look like they belong.
Yes, well, I must say, it's very difficult to work for you and not notice how removed you seem from the rest of us. Willoughby takes a big drink.
Removed, an interesting descriptor.
Well, unfortunately, when I was in the basement of Jenny Johnston's place, I not only ran into witches, but then the following visit, I also met a man talking to dead bodies about suns that couldn't be, suns that are on completely other planes of existence. And I cannot wipe it from my mind. And I was hoping that maybe you, with your understanding of the world, might put my mind at ease.
Oh, well, I shall do my best. In my experience, the dead rarely have anything worthwhile to say.
That's been my experience too. He was very passionate, odd even. It haunts me. I sleep and I dream of suns.
I have seen many things, but only the one sun, only the one moon. I wouldn't worry too much about what happens on other worlds.
Well, know that I appreciate the second chance, and I intend to keep you from harm.
Let's check in on the conditions. I feel like we're getting some conditions wiped here. What do you think, Mr. Gennadios?
I feel like he's still no less exposed, but I think he's coming to accept the way people are understanding him. So,
and I assume you were angling for being put at ease about the sons of another world, Willoughby. Or do you want to keep that one?
I don't think I've solved it yet. I'm perfectly content with the condition, but I saw it as an opening to talk to my employer about his otherworldly ways.
No, I love it. It's your vice. So if you want to stumble on a clue, you can, or you can invite Mr. Gennadios to ask you a question about your past.
In this instance, I'm going to take a clue, but it would be nice if I literally stumble over it. Since we're in the Cremorne Gardens, I will try to find a clue about that particular mystery.
You get to define the clue, and we can talk about that in a bit. But is there anything? Do we want to keep going with the scene, or are we?
It was condition clearing. I suppose we'll just continue on and investigate after this.
Yeah. Very good. It was a good scene. Thank you. Well, Dr. Tagore and Mr. Turner, you look into the sort of the bars on the door of Titus Figg's cell. He is a great ogre of a man, really quite big. And yet he seems to be walking back and forth in his cell with a lightness that belies his large physical size. And he has the bluest eyes. They're very, very piercingly blue. Like you can almost see them in the dimly lit cell. They almost shine through. Dr. Tagore, what do you do? Oh, and at that point, I think Dr. Walters will be like, well, I have to go attend to some more of the people in my care. Some fascinating subjects of study. I shall leave you to it. If you have a breakthrough, you'll share it with me, yes?
Oh, yes, of course. Without a doubt.
Very well.
Thanks again for your assistance and generosity.
And he turns and leaves.
I feel like we should, if we can sort of pretend that we planned ahead for this, pull out a little figs pie and say, Hortensia sends this to you. And, gently unwrap a little neckerchief napkin. Sort of
do you want to have a pie there?
I think it'd be amazing if that's okay, but I didn't plan ahead for it.
It's interesting. It's an interesting approach. What are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, he seems so infatuated with his family and may actually love them to think that his wife sent him a gift, even though we, stopped by and picked it up on the way. It seems like a way to get him to open up a little bit. Maybe break him out of his "I'm just going to sing" responses to you.
Yeah, I like that. I think it would, if not for the fact that he's in this like sort of weird, self-imposed catatonic state of a sort. I think I would have it just be an information move, but I think you need to get past that first. So we're going to say it's a day move instead. What are you worried about happening if you fail?
He manages to get a hold of me and shove the pie into my mouth.
Very good. Where did the pie come from? That's an interesting question, because presumably you were not able to get one of the actual Figs pigs because the Figs were Titus was arrested like shortly after.
Yeah. Oh, is the business not still operating?
No. It is totally shut down. Yeah.
Oh, got it. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
I assume that some members of the family were still.
No, they're hiding. Yeah, no, the only 3 Figs are like on the run.
Ooh, all right. Then this, I don't know. This becomes a bit of
you can pretend it's another biz there.
Right. Yeah. And we crudely tried to draw the logo into the pie.
Let's do the day move. I think you're going to be rolling this with presence. Yeah, with presence.
All right. So 10. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby indeed. You will, let's take a look at the move, remind myself how the move I wrote goes. A 10 plus, you do what you intended, or you hold steady, describe what it looks like. Okay, so you're going to get him to sort of come to like open up to you a little bit. How do you know it's working? Like describe that moment.
picturing him sort of singing, taking some nibbles, leans into that kind of humming while chewing, kind of a mix of the rhyme with a bit of a nom 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 sort of yummy noises, interspersed with this song about his beloved family.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Turner, what are you doing in the meantime?
Is it possible? I guess no, I don't think they would have this kind of technology back then. I was thinking maybe we could have like a phonograph playing with like an opera, because we found tickets to the opera and that might loosen them up too, but I don't know how. Oh, you're muted.
I'm pretty sure there were phonographs at this time.
Oh yeah, I was thinking like pipe it through the PA, but they're
Oh
probably
yeah, there's probably nothing like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe we could set up a phonograph outside of the room or something.
Yeah, they might have something playing to like, keep everybody calm or whatever, right?
Yeah, and I just switch it up for some opera that's been pressed.
Yeah, nice. What are you hoping to accomplish here?
Just further loosen him up, and then maybe also get some sort of reaction from him, like if the opera he likes has any correspondence to his personality. Or
Very good. Yeah, I like that. Take that as now that Dr. Tagore has done the work of like listening him up, take yours as an information move with reason, actually.
sounds good. Do I have anything that would help me? I use my sex toys. No, I don't think I have anything. 7, and my reason is 1-8.
And I should have asked you what yours, or no, that's just information move. So I just give you a clue, but there's a complication with the clue. Okay. So you are you change the sort of like little cylinder out, right? And it's playing this like sort of this opera. There's this like aria, this soaring, like kind of soaring note being held by the singer. And there's a person, you're aware quite suddenly, standing in the shadows, practically looming over you. This person is wearing a long black duster, and he has this very like thin, oily smile. And he lets fall out of his jacket sleeve a butcher's knife as long as your leg. You can hear the tip of the metal clanging on the floor as it slips out of his sleeve into his hand. And he says, I was enjoying the other music that was being played.
They just let people have butcher knives in here. I will try to buy him off with my fake blue sapphire.
So what do you say in this moment?
And for your troubles, I'll give you something pretty, and I flick it to him.
He bounces it off his knife and says, I know who you are, Mr. Turner. My father is fascinated by you. He is determined to bake you into a pie.
I thought you people preferred dock workers.
We have a wide variety of tastes, Mr. Turner. And he steps a little closer to you and says, there are only two states of being, Mr. Turner. A piglet suckling at the teat of Mock, swollen and happy, or food for the trough. Which will you be today, I wonder? Will you join me at the breast of the great he-sow, or shall we grind up your blood and bones for the slop?
I think you mistake me for some ordinary man.
Tell my father hello. And he recedes into the shadows. But you will learn something from Titus Fig. We'll get back to that. So, Mr. Gennadius, Willoughby, what do you do after your stroll on the promenade?
I think we should maybe see if there are any Cremorne Gardens like attendants or workers around the pier, someone we could ask some questions to.
Yeah, I think there's probably somebody who like is at the gate next to the pier that sort of like takes money, right? And gives people tickets and things like that. Willoughby, do you want to do something different, or are you?
No, I'd like to see how this conversation goes. I'm more and more fascinated by Alexander's sway over other people, and I just want to stand behind him and see how this
Okay.
conversation takes place.
You will find a person working the front. We'll say that person is well, you'll see two people. There's a person that's just sort of like welcoming people in and taking their money. And then there's another person, and this is like a young man. And then there is a young woman who seems to be his boss because she's sort of giving him instructions and things. What do you do?
I think the boss is going to be one of his followers.
Very good. This is Abigail Simpson, the daughter of the proprietor, Thomas Simpson. She sort of runs the place in truth, right? She sort of manages the day-to-day affairs of Cremorne Gardens. She's wearing a sort of simple, sort of utilitarian dress, hair pulled back in a neat bun. She has a very no-nonsense kind of attitude about her. You said you're making her a worshiper. When she sees you, how does she express her devotion to you in the scene?
I think at first there's the double take and the pale features as she realizes that I am me and I am here. And then she will just like, her conversation with her subordinate will just end and she will approach very demurely with her head bowed and she doesn't want to be too obvious. There's a lot of people here, but she wants me to know that she knows.
And she'll say in kind of a quiet voice with her head slightly dipped, my lord, I certainly didn't expect to see you here today. You, of course, don't have to pay anything to come in.
Well, we appreciate your generosity, my companion and I.
Yes, of course. If I can be of any assistance, please let me know.
I'm sure you can. Your name, girl?
Abigail Simpson is my name. My father owns Cremorne Gardens.
Or does he? Well, Abigail, we are here to enjoy ourselves, but also to uncover some information regarding the strange visitor you seem to have, the waterlogged visitor.
Yes, the creature of Cremorne Gardens. In all truth, sir, if there really was a fish man creeping about, my father would have already captured it, put it in a tank, and raised a tent. I mean, it'd be a joy to go in and have a look. Thank you very much. No, nothing to be scared of. It's not real. It's not real. He would have made a spectacle of the whole thing. Someone is playing a joke.
And you have no idea who that might be.
And here I want to look at the extent of your move to find out like how they have to respond to you. This is giveth, right?
Yes.
Scar your reflection, and then oh yeah, so if you give them something from personal quarters, they do exactly as you say, no questions asked. So including give them information. If you just want to have it be a sort of if you don't want to go that far, you can just do the information move to try to get like more out of them. So
No, I think once he sees a bit of reticence to answer, he will pull the silver bell from his pocket and hand it to her. Say a token from me.
she says, well, I believe the fishman is a hoax, my lord. Well, first, when she takes that, she's sort of like, there's this reverential, like, she's in awe that you're giving it to her, right? And she says, perhaps we could speak somewhere more privately.
Yes. Take us.
Actually, Willoughby might peel off at that point and investigate something else and leave the two of them to a private audience.
Yeah, so where do you go, Willoughby?
I am curious to just walk through the rest of the fair and see if there are, I want to count the dark corners. You know, when you're walking an art fair or something like that, you're like, well, there's an alley down that way, and here's and I just want to have a territory in mind and where something might hide.
Yeah, like do the information move with reason.
Oh, 8 plus, I think just 1, 9.
Should give you your clue. You are looking around, and at first you thought it was just part of a large potted plant with elephant ears and other, like, you know, sort of fronds or whatever, you know. But what appears at first to be a sort of palm frond in this arrangement is actually a very large dorsal fin, seemingly torn off.
In the plant?
Yeah, like it was just like, it's just there, like it maybe it fell in or was put there. It's a little unclear, but
Okay, I find a severed dorsal fin and then ponder that for a while.
indeed. Let's note that clue down. I think that's your first official clue, apart from the one that you stumble upon, which we're still waiting on.
So the clue I'd like to add, as we were walking the promenade, I started to notice just a faint smell. As Willoughby, they are very sensitive to smells at this point. Like after the whole onions thing, everything seems to clog the sinuses. So started to notice severed fish heads periodically along the edge of the water. And just the heads.
Love it. Let's go back to Dr. Tagore and Mr. Turner. Mr. Turner, how are you feeling after your encounter with Obert, who is presumably Obert the Blade?
I think I'm even more angry. Like, I'm already pissed off about the witches. And then this bladed guy comes up and he's like, I'm obsessed with you. I'm gonna knife you, maybe. And I don't know. I'm feeling angry / impotent / emasculated, maybe.
You're not feeling beloved?
Take angry as a condition for now. As soon as Dr. Tagore, as soon as the song switches to the opera, Titus Fig swallows the bit of pie, and he says, and he stops singing a song about his family. And he says, my wife, my beautiful La Hortensia, she loved opera. We used to sneak in to the opera house and watch from the rafters or from the little exit by the stage. I miss her.
I was going to ask a question here, backing up. We know she lost something. Is she herself also gone? I don't recall that.
So you're looking for three figs: Patrick, Obert, and La Hortensia. They're all missing. Obert just showed up, but they are in the wind technically, and you're trying to answer questions that help you draw them to you or draw them out. La Hortensia is she lost something dear to her, and using that is how you draw her in.
Yeah, the way he was speaking about her, I took it almost as though she were deceased or something.
No. They've been separated for a couple weeks at most. Like it's
Got it. Okay. All right. Got it.
That's how much they love each other. He says,
clearly. Sorry.
I know no one in my family made this pie, but I appreciate your effort.
Titus, I know it's obvious you love your family very dearly. Tell me, how did you and Hortensia meet?
Well, what an interesting story. It was, 20 years ago now at this point, in Spain, Madrid, in fact. That's where she's from. Well, I was a wanderer trying to learn about other peoples and places and cultures and tastes in order to improve my own work. I had big dreams, big ambitions. I thought I was going to be a chef working at the Grand Hotel. But then we had the boys, and we had to settle for less dramatic ambitions.
And where did you learn your craft?
My father was a cook.
Sorry, I've got a crass statement here that we'll get no information from him whatsoever. I've got to get past that. And from there, your meat sources. Why the human flesh?
I was wondering if you were going to ask about that. That is perhaps a conversation for another day, Dr. Tagore. And he still owes you a clue. He says, "Is that Mr. Turner with you?"
Yes, you know him?
"Oh, yes, I know him very well. We sent him the pie that put me in this predicament." "Mr. Turner," he calls out.
And I'll come close and say, "Your son is charming," and says hello.
He's a very, very dedicated boy. He knows very, very badly that I want to bake you into a pie, Mr. Turner.
Why me?
There is something about you, Mr. Turner. Something about your flesh. I imagine the taste would be incomparable.
If you knew me better, I think you would say that it turned your stomach.
I have a gift for you, Mr. Turner. I've been hiding it on my person. Dr. Walters hasn't been able to find it.
What kind of gift?
Put your hand through the bars and I'll give it to you.
You must take me for a fool.
And he says, "I'll meet you halfway." And he puts his hand up by the bars.
Okay, well, I'll do that. I'll put one hand out and my other one will be on my anathema.
Very good. He says, "What soft fingers you have, Mr. Turner. These are not the fingers of a man who does manual labor."
Quite right.
And he pulls out of, essentially, they wear like these sort of like simple like jumpsuit kind of things, and he pulls out of from the collar something he's managed to squirrel away, and he says, and he puts in your hand a skeletal hand, and then he pulls out another one, and it's a little bit smaller than that one, and sets it on top. And then he takes out another one, and it's a little bit smaller than that one. Says, "Look how neatly they fit into yours, like Russian nesting dolls."
Who were these people?
He goes back to singing a song. "Sing a song of 3 figs. The apples of my eye. Snatch a bunch of long pigs and bake them into pies," and so forth.
And are the hands like adult, teen, and like child type thing? Yeah.
And that's your clue. She'll put that in the.
I got it.
Okay, great, thanks. Seemingly, or it's increasingly small skeletal hands. So. Abigail Simpson, Mr. Gennadios. Let's take a break. 6:05. We'll come back to that. Mr. Gennadios, Abigail Simpson takes you to what's essentially her office. No, let's not do that. That's no fun. She takes you to the American Bowling Saloon because it's noisy and you can have a conversation and nobody will overhear it, right? You can have a close conversation and nobody will overhear it. The American Bowling Saloon is interesting because, when you first arrive, you hear like the thundering crash of bowling balls hitting their mark and pin boys dashing to and fro to set the pins back up. and there's a slightly stilted sound of a barrel piano cranking out a tune. And I paint the scene question for everybody at the table. This place embraces, for lack of a better word, Americana and the idea of the Wild West. But to an American, which 3/5 of us are, to an American, it would all seem a little off. Like something about it would not seem quite right. Why? Go ahead, Sarah.
There is a lot of red, white, and blue bunting, but the bunting is very British. It's something about the way that they arrange it in perfectly scalloped, around the edges of the ceiling. Maybe the molding's decorated thusly, but it looks like it's not the right flag colors, even though it is.
I love it.
I'm picturing a player piano, but it's playing Irish reels.
Very good.
There is a buffalo head mounted on the wall, but it's clearly just a like regular cow that's being dyed brown. Poorly.
The only idea I had was with the colors as well, so I'm struggling to come up with something
okay.
now.
We can skip it. It's fine.
Great minds, Fraser. Sorry.
There's no apple pie.
Or maybe all they serve is apple pie. So there's just like noise, this sort of cacophony of the place, right? It's inside this like kind of long building. And Abigail says, to you, Mr. Gennadios, she says, well, in truth, sir, I believe that this is a stunt being pulled by Madame Tussauds. They are getting ready to unveil a new horrors of the sea waxwork, and I think that the appearance of a horrifying fishman at Cremorne Gardens, their competitor to some degree, is both a way of scaring off our customers and also drumming up business for their new forthcoming exhibit. That's my theory, anyway. And that's
And
the
yet,
clue.
Oh, okay.
Madame Tussauds is getting ready to feature a horrors of the sea waxwork.
No one's being hurt by the creature as of yet, right? Like they've just spotted it.
No, the story that you actually heard, are you asking her or is this out of character?
Out of character.
Yeah, the story actually is there were two pleasure seekers. You have their names, Simon Piedmont and Beulah Thrum, young lovers. They claim to have been actually attacked by the creature. And Abigail will confirm that story. That she's like, yes, but no one was hurt. I mean, I think the most that happened was Miss Thrum's coat was torn a little bit.
That seems like it would have rather the opposite effect for the Tussauds.
Yes, possibly, but well, it's all anyone can talk about around here. So I don't know. All publicity is good publicity, right?
And you don't believe your father has anything to do with it?
Well, my father does like to find whatever angle he can to make a quick bit of coin, but no, I don't think so. This seems a little bit beyond him. My lord, I hope you won't think me too forward, but those of us who have dedicated ourselves to you, we are aware of your current social engagement with Theodore Brathwaite.
Oh,
Yes. We are all watching this situation unfurl with great interest.
what do you know of Ms. Brathwaite?
Well, I've heard the stories, of course. My father told me a story about how some 30 years ago, Ms. Brathwaite was a legendary pirate. She was called the Pirate Queen of Barbuda when she was a girl of 16. And he remembers the day when word reached London that the Royal Navy had captured her. It was a very big day. It was a big moment. Everyone was celebrating the capture of this dangerous pirate queen. And it was actually a young Queen Victoria. She was not queen then, who interceded on her behalf and saved her from the hangman's noose.
Fascinating. I would not have expected her to have lived such a eventful life.
Well, after she was saved by Queen Victoria, she turned her life around. All of her ships, she turned them to legitimate enterprise. And now she is probably one of the most wealthy importers and exporters in the country.
That's the thing with legitimate enterprise, isn't it? You can make a lot more money exploiting people legally, turns out.
Don't tell that to the workers here who complain endlessly about their pay.
Not today, I think.
And we'll just cut from there. Willoughby, what do you do after you find this dorsal fin in the potted plant?
Is this it's a potted plant amongst like there's a series of performers overhead, or is that just above the dance floor? Are there vendors, little, like I might head towards the
Yeah.
art area?
I think something that sticks out to you is
Yeah.
Something that sticks out to you, like as you're sort of just wandering around. There is a tent sort of in sort of dark purple and black silk, or maybe not silk, but it has the appearance of it. And there's a sign, sandwich board outside, advertising the services of Greco, the second-sighted boy.
I make note of that, if only because it might be fun to bring Alexander here later and see what
One
the
thing
second-sighted boy sees about him.
One interesting thing about the second-sighted boy and the sign in particular is there is a sun painted on the sign. A sun with a beatific face.
That I do take note of, and then kind of head towards the tent. Is the group gathered around, or is it just
I think when you arrive, maybe someone's leaving. Yeah.
okay? I head into the tent and see what I see.
You do see Greco. He is a boy, is a bit of a stretch. He looks like he's 16 or 17, maybe a little older. And his face has been painted with mystical symbols. And he has like a jewel, like a large jewel on his forehead. And he looks up at you and says, "Have you come to peer beyond the veil?"
Willoughby looks behind themselves and then sees the silk curtains, and then looks back at the boy and might ham it up for a second of this veil, that veil. What veil are you implying?
You have no need to be nervous with me. You have no need to feign disinterest. I know from looking at you that you have been touched by other worlds and you want to know more.
I am much in the opinion that knowledge can be a very dangerous thing.
Do you have the cosmic passage marked by chance?
I do not yet.
Okay. He says, if you wish for me to tell you something of your future, please sit.
I would very much like to hear what you think. But first, please tell me, what is it upon my visage, or beyond it, that you can see, that you know I know of many suns?
There is and he kind of like pauses and is considering you for a moment. And he says, most people go through life in this world and they never see beyond it. They never have things revealed to them. They never touch the outer realms. But I know you have. And I know this in your eyes. There's something behind your eyes. They have a translucence that perhaps only I can see.
Fascinating. Willoughby drinks the last of their flask and sits down.
He has a little table and he says, I don't deal in crystal balls or tarot cards or any of that nonsense. I simply
It's
need your
all
hand.
theater, isn't it?
Do you feel entertained?
We'll see.
And he takes your hand and moves it up to the jewel on his forehead and touches your fingertips to it. And we'll just cut the scene there for now. So, Mr. Turner and Dr. Tagore, what do you do after you're done getting your forensic evidence from from Mr. Fig?
Maybe we could see if they brought in any of his possessions when they took him in.
Yeah, you can go talk to Dr. Walters about that for sure. Yeah. He'll say, yes, we have trunks where we store things for patients. Not much was on him, but I'd be happy to lend you a hand with that. And he takes you to the storage area. And there's a trunk there, and an orderly or a nurse sort of unlocks it for you. And he says, I hope you find something interesting.
And I'll search it carefully.
You get an information move with a reason.
Seven.
What are you doing in the meantime, Dr. Tagore?
There's a chance that Bedlam has a morgue, and I might be able to pilfer a body part.
Yeah, I think so. There's probably like a place where they maybe like where when incidents happen, or like when someone like dies of old age or something, or for some other reason, probably like where they store bodies before they give them over to Scotland Yard or to mortuary workers, right? Do you ask Dr. Walters about that, or do you just go looking around?
No, it was more just meander the halls and appear to be lost, and see if I can find a way to acquire another body part here.
You can find such a place. I think that's okay. You'll see a nurse pushing a shroud covered body on a little cart.
Nice.
What do you do?
I'm gonna trail behind, and then presuming there's that moment where they enter a room and plan to deposit the body there, peek in and introduce myself and say that, you know, I'm Dr. Tagore, and I just have one last thing to check on that gosh, what's the proper term? Patient, inmate? I don't actually know.
Patient, I think. Yeah.
Okay. You know, one last thing on that patient, I need to check for some marks, if you don't mind.
And then the worker says it's fine by me, and they just like step outside the room, but they're not going anywhere. They're just kind of like standing outside the room. But you have the opportunity to take a body part if you want to make a day move roll on it, for sure.
This might not be the right moment, but I'll definitely do a scan for any anchor tattoos.
Interesting. You also have beneath the skin too, don't you?
I think that is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, you can just ask me questions upon examining a corpse. So.
Oh, interesting. All right, so I've not used this yet. Give me a second.
Yeah. Take a look at your move. I'm going to go back to Mr. Turner. Mr. Turner, you are entitled to a clue. Let me get it for you real quick. Also, I should mention, we have a mask here as well. There's the mask for the pigs is called the Mask of the Pig. So that is an option that you can use to bump up a die roll result if you wish at any point. I think what you'll find inside the trunk is there's like a little cloth bundle. And you sort of like can undo the bundle. And inside this bundle, there is a long length of carefully folded blonde hair. What do you do?
I'll take it, and probably once we're reunited at some point, I'll show it to Dr. Tagore, because I'm not sure I'd be able to make much of it.
You turn around to leave this little storage area, and Obert the Blade is blocking the doorway. He says, "They're remarkably bad at keeping this hospital locked down and secure."
I'm sure they never saw you coming, Obert.
So, tell me, Mr. Turner, have you decided yet whether you are going to join me at the teat of Mok, or are you going to be a bit of the slop?
What makes you think I'm an animal at all?
We're all animals to some degree. My brother Patrick even more so. Mr. Turner, I told my father I would help him bake you into a pie. And in order to do that, I have to get the meat. There's no one else around, and I do very, very quick work. I'll let you choose, though. Where would you like me to make the cut that ends your life?
How big is this room?
It's pretty small. It's more like it's practically a closet. It's a little bigger than that, but it's not very big.
Is there anything more substantial than my ritual dagger that I could get?
I mean, Yeah, I mean, we'll talk. So I think maybe. Are you just? I mean, you can't like kill him or defeat him. That's not possible per the rules. But the best you can do is kind of escape here, right? What would you try to do in order to escape? I'm okay with you improvising something in the scene. That's fine.
Oh, I throw my jar of ectoplasm at his face.
Okay, very good. I love it. Yeah, that's good. We'll come back to that moment. Mr. Janadios, what do you do after you're done having your meeting with Abigail Simpson and she reveals to you Madame Tussauds' forthcoming exhibition or exhibit?
I think I'd like to go find Willoughby. Or at least try to. I imagine it'll be difficult.
Yeah, Willoughby's in a tent. As you're wandering around Cremorne Gardens, it's a pleasant place. I think at a certain point, you'll hear a cry of distress from a crowd and then relief as a tightrope walker wavers and nearly falls, but then recovers, right? And then there's applause.
He'll kind of click his tongue in disappointment and then move on.
There's a shooting gallery. You can hear the regular pop of small firearms echoing from it, and the occasional shatter of glass from exploding bottles. And there's a man in a full suit of armor, medieval armor, placing a rose crown on his queen of beauty, a blushing elderly woman with a corncob pipe in her mouth. And a very, very strong smell of incense coming from the purple and black tent of Greco, the second-sided boy. Willoughby. Greco says, I see in your future, you are fated to be destroyed. The man you serve, the man you love, the man you adore will be the downfall of you. You must leave him behind, and you must leave behind the city of London, or you will face oblivion.
You don't happen to know any witches now, do you, boy?
I have seen a group of men and women who dabble in very, very dark things. I felt their presence when they arrived in this city, though I do not know where they are, and I do not know what they are doing. But they are a secondary concern. Your primary concern is the man you serve. That is who will be the death of you.
Well, thanks for telling me things I already know. It's been a pleasure. I just put 2 notes on the table and briskly, huffily walk out of the tent.
How are you feeling right now?
Uneasy, I think would be the best way to put it.
You know,
Not quite too, yeah.
Take uneasy as a condition, and then when you walk out of the tent, you see you kind of stumble onto Mr. Janadios, right?
Sir. Yes, hello. Hello. I wandered off again.
Well, that usually benefits us. Did you learn anything?
This boy seems to think that death is all I'm good for, but that's most mystics I've run into.
And he's incorrect, of course. You're much more useful alive.
That's very nice to hear. I touch his wrist almost, and then right myself.
Yes. Well, I learned nothing useful except that the proprietor's daughter believes this all a hoax, and our friend Ms. Braithwaite is more than she seems.
Well, she's a very complicated woman. Did you know she was a privateer?
I do now.
Fascinating. She's just so very business minded. I wish she would hire something better than children to do her bidding.
Children don't require much payment.
What's the children reference to? I think I'm missing
Oh,
something.
the yellow capped boy. I hate that little fucker.
Oh no, that's Sally No Face's employee.
Oh,
Yes.
I thought because it was a mastermind clue that he was actually employed with the Braithwaite.
No.
Sorry. Nope.
That's okay.
I'm better now.
We should see if we can track down the people who claim to have been attacked by the creature.
That seems like a very good idea. I'll follow you.
And I think that probably will that'll probably push us towards the desk phase at this point, and we'll, at least for the two of you, we'll finish up the scenes with Dr. Tagore and Mr. Turner. Dr. Tagore, did you take an information move? Or no, you're doing beneath the skin, right?
Yeah, I was looking at the beneath the skin. My feeling is that it's just too hard to explain trying to remove a body part at this point if I'm spotted, or once it's discovered. And then that sort of like, looking around for a bone saw, lifting up the shroud and then going like, forget it, drop the shroud, turn away, and then realize like, wait a minute, there's something that they overlooked.
Yeah.
And turn back and do a more proper examination of the body. So looking at it says two questions. So how did the person die, and what would an untrained eye overlook here?
So the first question is, how did this person die?
Yes.
And I will answer with a clue. I'll tell you which threat the clue relates to as well. Give me just a moment. Oh, and also, Sarah, I'm getting a little bit of like scratchiness on your mic. I think your mic is like touching something. This person was killed by another patient. They had a large block of salt forced into their mouth, which they choked on. You can still see the salt block wedged in there. That's a pig's clue. You don't have to. It's a little unclear if the hospital staff knows who did it or not. But in any case, it's an interesting observation for Dr. Tagore. If you poke around, or if you question people about how this happened, you might learn more details. What's your other question?
Oh, what would a casual observer overlook? Is that, I'm rephrasing that one, I think.
What would an untrained eye overlook here? Yeah, that's good. That's another clue as well. Give me a moment. Hmm. This person, the body is, the body has an eye patch. And if you lift up the eye patch, you will see that the socket, something has been placed in the socket very carefully. I don't know if it's so much an untrained eye would miss this, but probably just no one looked. Underneath the eye patch, sitting in the socket, is a mouse skeleton resting inside. Another clue for Fig's Pigs. Mr. Turner. You are going to try to throw the jar of ectoplasm over the blade in order to escape, correct?
Yes.
I think I'm going to push this to night move because it's a secluded, poorly lit place and you're facing a very, very terrible foe. What are you scared of happening if you fail?
Because the hands were pressed into my own, probably that I'll lose a hand.
It's worse than that. You will be murdered on the spot, and Hargrave House will be fed your hand.
Gross. Okay.
You don't have too many options here, but if you want to think of another way, you can do that now. Otherwise, roll with, I would say, with vitality to escape.
I can't think of any other way.
And I'm looking at your conditions. I don't think your conditions would really affect this negatively. So you can take an advantage if you're marking with the ectoplasm.
Yes, I will. Ooh, that's an 11.
Very good. Want to bump it to a 12?
What does that do?
You get a bonus. In addition to escaping, you get a little bonus. So.
No, not this time.
Go ahead and describe how you escape.
I think I just mirror his steps as he walks towards me. And then I shoot my body around to the back as if I'm about to cower. But then I have the jar of ectoplasm in my hand, having taken it from my person. And maybe instead of throwing it, what I do is, as he's about to bring himself to bear, I smash it against his face. And then when he stumbles to the side, I bolt.
Good. And we shall end the day phase there. Let's go to the desk. Do we have any playbook moves that are resolved during the desk phase?
I have to decide whether I'm doing night moves, yes?
Yeah, you just have to decide if you're going to do night work or not. So.
But our main purpose is to probably shut down the Witch's Coven, yes?
That is something that I think you're all probably pretty interested in. But you can let them do that, though, and you can go do something else.
I don't know, it seems worth going along. And given my recent experiences with supernatural things, I kind of want to find the mundane reason these witches aren't what we think they are.
Yeah, that would be really hard to explain at this point, I think. Good, I love it. Okay, so if there's no other moves that we're resolving right now, let's do a paint the scene question about Hargrave House. For whatever reason, You're all chatting in the basement. Maybe the upper levels are still like under a little bit of repair because of the assault by the marionettes. Paint the scene question for everyone. This space is cluttered with the belongings of long dead hunters who used to live in Hargrave House. What do you take from it? Add it to your personal quarters.
Maybe a silver blade for hunting some specific kind of creatures.
Very good.
I think that there is a directional lantern, something that I have slots around so I can aim light periodically into places, and several candles to fill it.
Yeah, you can add it to your personal quarters.
Given my recent feelings of helplessness when we were assaulted by the witches, I feel like I should find a pistol, perhaps some kind of over-barreled Derringer that looks just not right, but that and a little tiny pouch of ammunition.
Yeah.
And since Alexander apparently likes to throw a punch every now and again, I think he finds one of the little blades that you like close your hand around and it sticks up between the knuckles, the little knuckle knife
Nice.
in his pocket.
Everybody gets to say what they're going to be doing on this upcoming night phase, or what they want to do during this upcoming night phase. And then after everyone speaks, everyone gets to make one revision if they wish. Let's go in the order of the sheet, Willoughby.
Well, it seems like we should attempt to do what we tried to do the night before, before the marionettes managed to overrun Hargrave House. I believe we were attempting to go to the reservoir underneath the Crystal Palace, and I think that's probably still a good idea, but I will follow Alexander's lead.
I'll just jump to Alexander then.
I think, considering the assault on Hargrave House, they should take this coven out.
Mr. Turner.
Coven time.
Dr. Tagore, you've already expressed an interest in going along. Is that still hold?
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Very well. Do we have any unresolved Janus Mask prompts right now? I don't think so. We do. In that case, I shall introduce the unseen. Our unseen for this night phase is called Moonlit Mudlarking. The port of London is one of the busiest in the world, and with so much cargo being loaded and unloaded, the odd crate ends up overboard. The ebb and flow of the Thames deposits this lost cargo up and down the riverbank. Under the light of the full moon, the desperate or optimistic pick through the sucking mud of low tide, stinking of shit and rotting fish, in the hope of finding treasure. Everyone will do prompt 1, and then prompt 2 will be Fraser. Prompt 3 will be Sarah. Prompt 4 will be Brian. Let's take a 5-minute break. Moonlit Mudlarking. This is for everyone. What debris from industry, trade, or home life is found washed up on the mud banks of the Thames? What does it tell us about the city? Whoever wants to go first, fire away.
I think raw cotton floats there, but then gets entangled in like something like oil, so it becomes like rainbow effect, but then sinks and drowns.
does that tell us about the city?
Industrialization's a bitch.
Fair enough.
Cotton's gotten so cheap you can let it wash downstream.
Who wants to go next?
Picturing somebody holding up a porcelain plate that's still round and kind of almost holding it up to check it against the moon to see are these equally round, are they equally bright and shiny once you smear the mud off. And in terms of what it tells about us, the city, the industrialization of ceramics, and this decorated porcelain that used to be so priceless and hard to reach is reaching further down the economic rungs.
There are just numerous bottles, like the amber colored bottles that are labeled with like laudanum and cocaine and arsenic, and just showing how much of the city is using these drugs, but also how there's no real like sufficient garbage system. Everybody just chucks their stuff in the river.
I think to that effect of everything washing downstream, that there isn't an evening in London that goes by that there isn't a body washed up on the shore as well.
The Crystal Palace exhibits are long gone, but the structure is still there. And it is now mostly used as essentially like vendors have moved in. And so you have these like night vendors who have moved into this space underneath the sort of glass and iron structure of the Crystal Palace. And there are people just going to the various vendor stalls, getting food and looking at goods and things. And you all know where to go. You're looking for a spiral staircase that goes down to a particular part of the sewer system. But I think those of you who have the Cosmic Passage marked, you have an uneasy feeling about this place. This is true for Mr. Turner as well. Everybody with Cosmic Passage and Mr. Turner. How do you sense the presence of the coven in the area? What is making you feel uneasy about this otherwise ordinary nighttime scene of people shopping?
There is an echo of footsteps that are our own steps, my own steps. I take a step, I hear additional feet behind me, and then they pace me. If I take steps, they take steps, but there's nobody to be seen there.
Mr. Turner?
Of course, wherever I walk, the lamps go out. The darkness comes for me.
Indeed, indeed. I think initially you're staying more or less together, but you're occasionally like there's enough swell of people to sort of keep you all somewhat occasionally separated from each other, right? You come back together. At one of these points during the separation, Willoughby, you come upon a group of people and they all seem to turn and look at you in particular. And they're all wearing masks, a sun, a moon, other expressions of the heavens. They all turn to you and they're staring at you. I want you to make the night move at disadvantage to keep your nerve here. What are you afraid will happen if you lose your nerve?
And I will be kidnapped into a cult that worships any celestial body they stumble upon.
I think I have to say how it's worse. You will be kidnapped and you'll be sacrificed. Roll with composure, disadvantage, 3 dice, take the 2 lowest.
Okay. 7 plus 2 composure, so I got a 9 actually.
I'll tell you what the complication is going to be. The complication is going to be that I think they're going to bid you to follow them, and you will follow them for a time, perhaps separating from the group for a bit. If you're okay with that, you can keep it. Otherwise, you can do Janus Mass to be free and clear of it with the 10.
No, I'm fine with it. I'll keep it.
Mr. Gennadios, you find yourself in an old exhibit from the Crystal Palace. It's been repurposed for commerce now, but it used to be like a display, an exhibit about life in ancient Greece. I'm curious if they got it right or wrong.
It's very romanticized. It's all the highlights, none of the more gritty realities. And so I think he's pretty amused.
At a certain point, you find that you are surrounded by a circle of people, just ordinary looking people. And they're all staring at you. And they all begin to bleat at you. Bah! 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 A cacophony of bleating. What are you thinking right now?
They definitely aren't his worshippers. He would assume. I think he'd be worried that there's a rival cult, perhaps.
Make a night move with composure as well. You have no conditions though, so you're in the clear on that. What are you afraid will happen though if you lose your nerve right now?
That they will they'll take him away.
It's worse than that. They will take you away and take you directly to the coven.
All right, so that's a 7.
You are going to keep your composure and you can walk away from the situation as you wish, but not before I give you the condition. Just one of the herd. Or Mark Janus Mask.
Well, yeah, I'll go with one of the herd. Let's see what that brings.
Otherwise, you can describe how you sort of disentangle yourself from this.
He just kind of puts on a very brave sneer and just pushes past a couple of them and just walks away. Doesn't rush, just moves with a little bit more quickness away.
Mr. Turner, no, Dr. Tagore. Dr. Tagore, you see a couple of women, middle class by their dress, friends, it seems, looking over. They have each, their eye has been caught by something in a stall, a particularly beautiful piece of fabric. And they both reach for it. And they're having an argument about this piece of fabric. And it's getting a little heated. And one of them says, Mary, I've had it with you. I've had it with you and your selfishness. And she takes out a hat pin and stabs the woman to death, just plunges it into her chest over and over and over again. No one reacts. What do you do, Dr. Tagore? How are you feeling?
I've been looking for some fresh body parts. I'm certainly horrified by the swift ramp up of the argument over a piece of fabric.
Take a night move with composure to keep your composure. What are you afraid of happening if you fail or lose your nerve?
Essentially just being afraid of blood as a doctor. Like I can't have that. You know, I need to be able to dig my hands into the gore and do the dirty work.
It's worse than that. I think you are going, that is pretty bad.
Compulsively washing or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, interesting. It's worse than that because I think the reason why you have this sudden fear of blood is, I'm kind of going with this sort of idea of the witch puppetry here a little bit. You join in with Mary in stabbing her friend to death. And again, no one's reacting to this horror. And because of the fascination with witch puppetry, I want you to make it a disadvantage.
All right. 5.
A 5.
Not so hot.
Not so hot. Mr. Turner, you look over to see Dr. Tagore take out the scalpel of Sally No Face, and he dives in lustily to slash and stab at this poor woman. Everyone in this little makeshift market is remarkably calm and unresponsive to all of this. You can feel the power of the coven here. It is great, Mr. Turner. This is their space. Dr. Tagore, if you don't want to be doing this, you can mark the Janus mask, but otherwise, this is what's happening.
Yeah, it seems worth marking a mask here, and I think I can make a pretty good flashback narration here.
Okay, so you stay your hand with the scalpel. We'll come back to that in a bit. Mr. Turner, I'm curious what you're doing right now, realizing that you're all like in a trap, essentially. This is all bad. What are you doing?
I would like to do a ritual that floods this place. Like bring the moon closer and adjust the tide so that the tide comes in. Drown those little witches like something appropriate.
We shall perhaps come back to that. Let's go to Moonlit Mudlarking. Speaking of the moon, who's got our first prompt here? This is you, Fraser. 2 youths come to blows over a case of whiskey with a couple of bottles still intact. as they push and shove in the slimy mud. How do we know this fight is more about, or more than just it's about more than just the find?
I think with the rustle of their movements, we see that they have like different gang tattoos. And so it's a territorial dispute as well.
Nice. Willoughby, you follow this group of people wearing celestial masks round a corner into a dark nook of the Crystal Palace. They turn to face you and extend their hands to take yours. Do you take their hands?
No. I say instead, I look at their hands warily and say, I do not trust the other sons. And see and wait for a reaction.
They say in unison,
Of course.
perhaps if you look behind our masks, you would see the truth of us, and your mistrust would fall away like the veil between worlds.
The second moon from the right looks like they might awfully be pretty under there. Could I see under their mask?
That person steps forward.
I take their hands.
Do you remove the mask?
I do.
You remove the mask, and you are looking into a silvery void behind it. You are at risk of falling into this void and being lost forever. I need a night move. How are you? What are you afraid of happening? Well, that's what you should be afraid of happening, but anything else that you're scared of should you fail here?
Nope, that's pretty much it. I stare into a silver void and fear for my very existence. I don't think that there's anything worse than that.
There is. No one
no.
will remember you.
Okay.
Roll with sensitivity and at disadvantage because of the sons of another world.
I'm looking to see if there's some sort of an item that I might use to cancel that disadvantage, but I don't necessarily see anything here that's narratively valuable. So that's a 4 + 2 is 6. And I do not want to be lost into a silvery void forever. Please, I would rather mark a Janus mask.
You can do that in a moment. I get to narrate the failure, and you can change it later.
Supreme failure.
At the precise moment that you lift off the mask and look into the silvery void, Mr. Gennadios, your former manservant, comes up to you and says, "Are you okay, sir? You look like you've seen something that's shaken you."
It'll take him a moment to realize what's wrong here. He's so distracted, and then he'll just pause and stare at them and say, "I killed you."
No, sir, don't be ridiculous. Come now, we have to destroy that damnable coven of witches.
Yes, I think we do.
But, Willoughby, if you're putting on the Janus mask, that won't happen.
I imagine that not only am I not here now, but I was never born. I don't have childhood memories. I see a big silvery void. I'm like, nope. And instead avert my gaze and do not get sucked into oblivion. And I mark Mask of the Future.
Very good. I'm giving you the condition, the silvery void. And I'm going to just say, instead, we see you walking up to Mr. Gennadios saying, you look like something has shaken you.
Yes, there were. It doesn't matter. We'll go onward.
I follow you, sir.
And I'm glad for it.
Dr. Tagore, do you want to do your mask flashback now?
Yeah, I've got a quick mask question. Because we also have the Mask of the Pig and the Mask of Revelry available. Yeah.
Just the mask. Those are only when you're actively on those threats. Right now,
Okay, so neither of them. Okay,
yeah.
got it. So yeah, Mask of the Past. What was it called here? The narrative flashback to the happiest day you shared with the person you lost. So my sister Dottie and I, rather young, were out with our aunties in Calcutta. The aunties shopping for material for some new saris, and they find themselves in a struggle very reminiscent to this, the single piece of fabric that they both want that's just right. And, you know, each of them kind of has a hand on it, pulling, one giving the evil stare, the other giving that wrinkled lip, sort of distasteful, this is not going the way it should. And at that moment, the tailor tosses a pair of scissors onto the fabric saying, perhaps this will help. And it lands right in the middle like that. They're going to dive for this blade. And instead the tailor's assistant steps up, grabs the scissors, and very neatly shears that fabric in two, proving there's enough for both.
Very good. Very good. So that puts your result, your die result, at a 7 to 9. And I think I'm just going to give you a condition, which is, I like these kind of weird conditions. I'm going to say this condition is called something with the fabric. I don't know. I'm open to ideas if anybody has any ideas. I'm going to call it
I'm blanking on the name. What's the king who offered to divide the baby in half, and then the claimant said, no, that's
Solomon.
not
Right?
Solomon.
Solomon. Okay.
I kind of like that. Let's call that, let's go with Solomon's wisdom. Mr. Turner, you are getting ready to perform your rite, when quite suddenly you and all the rest of Hargrave House find yourself in the dark, wet sewers beneath the Crystal Palace. You all don't remember going down the spiral staircase, but you must have. And you see at the end of this wet corridor, stones glistening with moisture from the candles set along the walls. At the far end, you see the coven wearing their heavy black veils. And they say, "You cannot work your magic here, little brother. Your power is nothing here." What do you do?
I start doing like the same sort of inverse, like how I was doing that reverse exorcism thing. I started just trying to do it anyway.
They let out a wail and they begin doing their counter magic from across the way. And we shall go to the third moonlit mudlarking scene for Sarah. An older woman picks through the mud, lost in her own world. She does not seem to focus on items of monetary value. What do we see her collect?
She is wading through the mud, probably about shin or so deep. She doesn't have to go quite as deep as everybody else does to find really deep, meaningful, and valuable treasures. She can kind of sift through the detritus that's left along the edges of the bank. And we see her and her gnarled hands wrapping around this piece of rope and pulling it out and starting to bind it into a ball of twine. And then she's wrestling and trying to get a bootlace off a boot unstuck from the mud and then tying them together and continuing to wind them. And she sees this piece of a shirt that might have been stuck to somebody at some point, but isn't any longer, caught on a stick that's still moving through the river. And she yanks it off and ties it and continues to wind.
Thank you. Mr. Gennadios, one of the coven quite literally flies at you. They are rapidly floating forward towards you, their hands outstretched, and you can hear them saying, "I will kill a god this night. I shall be the myth ender. I shall strike you down, and I shall take your power. You have seen the sun of the ancient world, and I will take that sun from your eyes." And they're flying right at you. What do you do?
He slips his hand in his pocket, gets that knuckle knife between his third and fourth fingers, and prepares to punch.
Night move. What are you afraid is going to happen if you fail here?
They kill a god tonight.
They do, and they take your eyes, which become a very powerful object of power. Roll with sensitivity. Let me take a look at your conditions, if I think any of them are relevant. Yes, just one of the herd. You're nothing special here. Maybe you feel that way or you don't, but you are just one of the herd. Can also be interpreted as a sacrifice, and that's what they're trying to make out of you. Roll sensitivity, disadvantage, but
That's
you can
7.
But you can mark the PQ to balance it out. So
Then that would be 10.
very good. You can destroy the switch. Describe it.
As she is just launching herself towards him, he stands rather passively and then just readies his fist. And when she gets close enough, just one swift strike to the face. And as she falls, he just says, "Not this god and not tonight."
Dr. Tagore, one of the witches, says, "Your sister wants to say hello to you, Doctor." And they open up their black robe, lifting their veil, and your sister, flesh falling off the bone, her beautiful hair in stringy patches, an eye hanging out. She crawls out of an inky void where the witch's body is, and she's rapidly crawling towards you. "It's been so long, brother. Give me a kiss." As she crawls towards you, what do you do?
I don't know. That's pretty gross. I feel like I'm going kind of half spiritual and half academic here, half anatomist, with sort of the scalpel in one hand, pulling that wax doll's hand from the St. James Street haunting out of my medical bag with the other. Sort of a get thee behind me, you witchy beings. You know, I've seen your puppetry before, and this is compelling costumery, but you know, my sister parted her hair on the left side, not the right.
So you're just trying to keep it at bay then, basically?
Sorry, keep the one.
You're just trying to keep this like apparition at bay or whatever?
Yeah, trying to talk my way to reason into, like, you know, it's an illusion or just somebody dressed in a costume, and if they get too close, then I'm gonna have to stab the scalpel into their temple.
Yeah. I love it. I think this is going to be the night move with sensitivity, of course. I think because of fascinated and guilt, especially, maybe alluding to something with your sister, I don't know. I'm putting you at disadvantage unless you want to mark an item, in which case it would even it out.
Alrighty. Do I decide that before I roll?
Yes.
All right. Well, I've already called that I was pulling out the wax doll's hand, so may as well mark it.
What are you afraid of happening? Or what are you afraid will happen if you fail right now?
Oh, the sister corpse is real, which then proves that all this work that I've been doing assembling the child is false. That I don't even know what I'm building back in my chamber at Hargrave House.
I think that it's worse than that. I think your work on the child will take a distinctly darker tone in how you pursue it and what will make it work. And yeah, go ahead, and if you're okay with that, go ahead and roll with sensitivity straight up.
7, I think. I've got a +2. Yeah, 7.
You will keep the creature at bay. We'll talk about that in a moment. Willoughby. There's a witch flying at you.
Mm-hmm.
A male witch by the voice. And he says, "I don't even know who you are, but I know I'm going to end you. And when I do, no one will remember your name." What do you do?
I pull out a large Gladstone bag. I've got a black one in my personal quarters, and I say, "No one knows my real name anyway." And I hold it out, and I want to try and, like Toro, where the witch is flying at me, I step to the side and get their face in the bag, and hopefully they can't see and they'll fly into a wall. That's what I want to have happen.
Nice. I love it. That sounds fun. Yeah. If you're marking the bag, you can take an advantage. I'm not going to give you a disadvantage. So go ahead.
Woohoo! That is an 11.
Nice. You succeed. Describe how you could defeat the witch completely.
I do exactly as I described, and there's a sickening crunch muffled by the bag.
Nice, good. Mr. Turner, you are going to, it sounds like you're going to try to do some big magic here, right?
Yeah, I want to turn them into holy host.
What's your preparation look like? How does this start?
Well, I think I need to summon the angels as I see them to me by using my anathema to bleed my left arm, and then I'll use my inverted cross to once the holy host comes, I want to direct them into the mouths of the witches.
I love it. We can just have that preparation scene going on right now. Cut to the final moonlit mudlarking, which is for Brian, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yes.
Several bedraggled children poke a bloated corpse with sticks. Those who do not double over retching rifle through the waterlogged effects. What last traces of this person's life or death do they run off with?
You know how a good tea container is watertight? A rather ornately decorated tea container with sort of a sun, moon, stars motif on it, and a silver tea set that accompanies that.
Mr. Turner, you are doing rites of salt and smoke, yes?
Yes.
Let's read it. So what's the perversion of the Christian ritual that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm using the inverted cross, and I imagine just bleeding myself out would be a perversion as well.
Indeed. Go ahead and roll a sensitivity. And I'm not going to put you at disadvantage. So if you want to mark something for advantage, you can do that.
I'll use a leather-bound book of rituals that I'm probably bleeding on.
Very good.
Ooh, good thing I did it too. 4, 6, and 8.
You get to choose an effect, but you also have to choose a complication from the lists there.
Janus mask.
Very good. So just the effect. You can mark the Janus mask by all means.
I actually was super hoping that would happen, because the Janus mask I wanted to do was do the darkened threshold narrative scene in which you are possessed by a dark entity, harm an innocent.
Oh, interesting. Is the innocent right now? Like this is the thing happening right now?
Yeah, I imagine the host coming down would possess everybody, even the innocents around this place and stuff.
Oh, I see. Very good. Well, give us the scene. What does this look like? I mean, well, first of all, what's the effect you're going for?
Oh yes. I guess it's a form of entrapment.
Yeah, or banishing them as well, I think probably work as well. Or do one thing that's beyond human limitations. I think you'll be able to get what you want here, which is to basically stop the coven in their tracks, right? Give us the scene. This feels like it should be a big scene, so narrate away.
Sure. So I've got my unholy book of rituals, and I think, maybe I've copied out the spell that I've wanted to do before, and I actually activate it by bleeding onto it, so the words start to glow with the reddish tint, and then the red starts to turn white, and as it pours forth, I use my inverted cross to channel it into them. And I imagine that like I drop the book of rituals and like this just white light pours out of it. And for me, it probably seems like, you know, the angels are coming, hosts of angels are coming. And then I just, yeah, like put forward my hand and the light just like consumes everything around us. Like it's just blinding.
And so we're suggesting that like some of the people who are up in the Crystal Palace get consumed as well.
Yeah, I think like the host is greedy.
Mm. I think I just want to have everybody else describe a little bit of how they interpret this then, and then that'll end the night phase. Everybody, for the paint the scene, please tell me the horror going on at the Crystal Palace as the coven is being stopped, fully destroyed.
Fraser, tell me if this fits what your overall image is with Ives of this ritual here. Is it possible that this is thwarting the witches because they had an innocent sacrificial victim, you know, in the next chamber over in the cistern, and that victim is consumed?
Oh yeah, I would imagine that everything would be taken more or less. And I think you could feel free to paint it however you like, because I think Turner is not a reliable narrator of what is happening too.
Yeah, I'm imagining there's like a lot of like, it's really quite horrifying, right? Like what's happening here. So
Yeah.
And Turner's like, this is my church, it's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Feel free to get gnarly with the details, Dr. Tagore.
I'm picturing a very pronounced, like mild screams up above, like echoing down the stairs, you know, lots of people in panic, but then a very distinct, different scream coming from the next chamber over, kind of behind where these witches emerged from. And in the aftermath, once this has calmed down, we find you know, a young child just physically obliterated, laying on some altar. The ritual not complete. Their ritual not completed.
Willoughby or Mr. Gennadius?
I like the idea as he's channeling his unholy divinity through his that Mr. Turner is both calling and casting out kind of forceful magics and therefore overriding the witch's hold on this place. And so then in the market above, there may be a few dozen characters that were either previously enchanted with the puppets or just like under the sway to the effect that they were just their creatures of the witches. And we see them just kind of full Indiana Jones melting where they stand.
I love it.
And some of the people above, when the host, like they're getting possessed by these spirits. Yes, like they're taking more bodies than what was initially planned. I think we see like this burning angelic script, just a light upon their skin, and then it soon spreads to the whole of them, and soon there's just these people immolating all over the place.
And that concludes the night phase.
Let me add one last line.
So please do.
That wax hand that I was holding out as this corpse daughter, or sorry, corpse sister is coming towards me. Just sort of funnels into the hand, like disappears in a way. And when we go to the next room in the cistern and find that obliterated body of a child, their hands are curiously undamaged, even though the rest of the body is obliterated.
I love it. I also
Can I have the hands for the body of the child?
Yes, you can. They could be little bigger if you don't want little tiny hands on the arm. Little tiny hands. You definitely can. Give me that moment though, when you take the hands, how does it remind you of your sister? Or if you have to narrate a flashback to how
Oh,
a
true.
memory, a pleasant memory.
Just holding hands together, walking on our way to down, along the river, heading to our auntie's house. Let us say we'll tie it back to that.
Okay. That concludes the night phase. Let's go to the blessed dawn. Rewards. Are there rewards on this one? There are rewards on this one. I shall just, I think I'll just take a picture of the rewards block. That way you all can kind of read them as you wish. Can you upload a picture to chat? Is that a thing you can do? You can do a file, right?
Yep.
Let's try to do that. Here we go.
Now, dawn is when I can, with my new
Yep.
move,
Mhm.
pick a thing.
Yeah, we'll do dawn.
We're gonna
moves
go
in a
through that?
minute. Yeah.
Okay.
we'll do it in a minute. First thing is rewards. So threats have rewards, and you can click on this, allegedly click on this screenshot that I just sent you, and it lists them. They are, for people watching the video, a rosary made of tiny animal skulls and finger bones. Add it to your personal quarters. A copy of the 6th and 7th books of Moses, a grimoire, added to your personal quarters. And then 3 mementos from the investigation. Ask another hunter what it is, and then add it to your personal quarters. Who would like what?
Sounds like my kind of rosary.
Very well. You can add that rosary to your PQ.
You can just hurl it at one of the Figs brothers and hope for the best.
Yeah.
I think I would take a memento. Someone wants to. Drew, do you want to describe something I found?
The witch that was coming to you with their head in the bag, I think on his, or in the robes left over, right, do you already have this? You already have a cigarette case. Let's go with
Just a pair.
a compass that doesn't seem to point north.
I love that.
Very on brand for Willoughby too right now. So that's good. Dr. Tagore, do you want a memento, or do you want a copy of the 6th and 7th books of Moses?
I'm kind of curious about that, but Drew, do you feel drawn to that book?
I figured Ives would want that, but if not, I think it's fair game.
All right, I will take that away then.
Go ahead and add it to your PQ, and in that case, Drew, ask for another player to give you a memento.
Let's ask Brian.
You may not know, I don't know, that there was a funerary portraiture thing that was in sort of the Mediterranean area, where they would do these really gorgeous encaustic paintings on pieces of wood. Kind of a memento mori of sort, but not a photograph, a painting.
I love that, yeah.
There's a wax portrait, and it's somebody that you recognize, like you knew that individual back in the day.
All right.
And it was probably next to a stand selling roasted chestnuts. Or meat on a spit. Good. That's everybody then. And let's go to dawn questions. Let's do dawn questions. Let's take a look at, we'll start with Willoughby. Did you answer a question? No. Did you resolve a threat? Yes. Did you experience an echo in the night? Willoughby.
I was trying to pull a little bit of the back and forth of that fabric tug of war into the old woman's fighting with the mud, but I don't know if it came through that clear.
I liked it. Yeah, I'm into it. Yeah, I'm into it. You can take the XP for that. Did you engage in a petty reprisal of someone who angered your employer?
I stole absinthe from Ives.
I'll take it. That's right. And Mr. Janios is not happy with Mr. Turner right now. They're having a low key, one-sided drama right now. Because I don't think Mr. Turner's aware of it. Good. You can take that one. Did you subtly express sexual desire for your employer in the way you dress them or serve them?
There was some incidental touching, but I don't think that really was.
No, I don't think it came through
No.
quite as much. Dr. Tagore, did you answer a question? No. Did you resolve a threat? Yes. Did you do an echo? Yeah, you had you definitely had an echo in the night with the flashback fabric thing for sure. But I'll take.
Let me ask a game mechanic question. I certainly was sort of angling for that on a storytelling level, but it wasn't from the unseen.
That's a good point. Yeah. It was. That's a fair point. I think it's in the spirit of it though, so I'm kind of okay with it. Did you do like an actual technical echo in the night as well, or just
it feels a bit of a stretch, some stuff involving fabric, but
yeah, no. I think I feel like it's in the spirit of the thing. I think it's okay. Did you have a conversation with the child? No, we have not seen that yet. Did you dismiss the possibility?
It was Dave Faye's when we on last recording last week.
Oh, what? Remind me. I don't remember.
With the blood that I brought back, had enough of the body assembled to kind of sit and have a conversation.
That's right.
In the
You're correct. I'm sorry. You're right. Yep, you definitely did. Did you dismiss the possibility of a supernatural explanation despite everything you've experienced?
I was going with more of the mundane puppetry from the side of the witches. I don't know if it was.
Yeah, I don't know if that one quite came through, but I think you've got the other one for sure. Mr. Gennadios, you get the resolving a threat. Did you do an echo of the night, Mr. Gennadios?
That's what I was going for with the angelic script, like the gang tattoos.
Very good. Did you let someone touch you and then make them pay a price for doing so?
I was kind of going that with the witch, like when she got close and was reaching for him, that's when he punched her in the face. But
I like it. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think it's okay. Yeah, I like it. I'm into it. Did you secretly show a vulnerable side to someone?
I don't think I hit any notes I haven't hit before.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Turner. Yes, a threat was resolved. Did you get an echo in the night, Mr. Turner?
I was trying to, with the territorial dispute, mirroring us encroaching on the witch's territory as well.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm into that. Yeah, it's good. Did you have a face-to-face encounter with Dark Entity? Yes. Did you perform a ritual? Yes. You're good to go. And let's go to... You get to, at this point, choose new elective dawn questions if you wish, or leave either or both the same.
Let me ask you an experience question here. I have 3 already ticked. I'm adding 3 more. Since I'm rolling past 5, does the extra one carry over? Or
it does, yeah. You'll mark in advance and then you'll have a carryover.
Okay.
So as part of the dawn phase, I get to ask the keeper for a memento in addition with my move, I believe.
Yeah.
That's how that works?
Yeah, that's the next thing we're doing.
Sorry. I'm reading the steps and I'm not counting well today.
No, it's okay. Yeah, we can. That's the next thing. So, any playbook or custom moves that are resolved during the dawn phase, and we know for sure that Memory is the Serpent is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell me that you're claiming a memento, which can be any object from a scene in the recently concluded night phase you would have reasonably been able to acquire. You get to define it. If you keep it, add it to your personal quarters. If you give it away, they add it to their personal quarters and you mark XP.
So in the spirit of thing, as this is my first time around, would it be reasonable? Does it have to be actually mentioned in that night scene?
No.
Or if I wanted to paint it as they had been using, for lack of a Victorian word, voodoo dolls
That's fine,
on us
yeah.
previously. I would like one, specifically the one that is shaped like Dr. Tregore.
That's right, because we've seen that one for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, whenever you take things like mementos from the scene, it could be something that we didn't see on camera for sure. So,
You know
Dr.
a voodoo doll shaped like me.
yes,
Yep.
yes.
Don't
a
get
sort
on
of-
Willoughby's wrong side. Note taken.
We should call it like a sort of, what's the
We used to
word?
call them poppets, right? Like,
Yeah, I like poppet. I like
Mhm.
or like a homunculus, or like
Mhm.
that's some kind of, you can name it however you want. It's not strictly
Mhm.
voodoo. So.
Effigy.
An effigy, yeah, that's pretty good too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
A sympathetic depiction of Dr. Tagore.
Simulacrum.
Simulacrum, with
Mhm.
all the words. It's like we opened up a thesaurus or something. I love it. You get to mark XP for doing that, Willoughby.
Only if I give it to Dr. Tregore or one of the other hunters, right? Do I
Yes,
put it
if you give it to Dr. Tagore, yeah, you get XP. If not, if you keep it, you
Mhm.
don't.
Am I able to give it to him later on and gain XP for it, or it's basically in this moment I have to
You just
decide?
if it's ultimately going to Dr. Tagore, we decide it now. Yeah,
It will ultimately go to Dr.
Okay.
Tregore, but I think it'll be fun to roleplay that.
you can have the scene for sure. But go ahead and mark the XP for now.
Cool.
And do we have any unresolved Janus mask? And I think that concludes the dawn phase. That concludes our session. And we shall do stars and wishes. Stars, as always, things we enjoyed, wishes, things you hope to see next time. Whoever wants to go first, go right ahead.
Beyond spiritual turducken in the chat, which really just made my day. I really enjoyed seeing Ives take down the coven, but you were just totally fine with the collateral damage. That I think said so much about him, and it conveyed a lot, and it was fun, not for them, but for us. And just overall, as usual, all the character moments were great. It's always fun to spend time with Willoughby and to see the fun that Dr. Tagore gets up to in his private moments with other people. So just, yeah, overall, great. And also just great to get the coven out of the way. Wishes, I guess.
Go ahead.
Looking forward to seeing more of the creature, and yeah, I'm really interested in how we solve that one.
Star for me, I enjoyed having this sort of like this lighter moment at Cremorne Gardens. That was fun. It was enjoyable. Cremorne Gardens doesn't feel dangerous, like it's a threat, but it doesn't really feel dangerous. Like it doesn't feel like the stakes are that high. And I kind of like that as a sort of nice counterbalance to the quite dangerous coven, the quite dangerous Fig family, and all the sort of bigger implications of those things. So it's kind of nice to have this like tonally sort of different thing. So I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed how it kind of came out. I'm enjoying this sort of strange exploration of worlds and dimensions that's taking place with Willoughby. I thought that was an intriguing thing, even though you didn't get to continue pursuing the Limehouse Lurker. It's a holdover from the Limehouse Lurker, and so it's kind of fun to kind of keep having that in the story. And so I kind of enjoyed that a lot. And I liked the final sequence of the sort of like just terror of the Crystal Palace and kind of what the witches were doing, and then the sort of final confrontation with the coven with everybody. I thought that was great fun. And wishes, nothing in particular. I think I'm very interested in just continuing to see the characters, learning more about their pasts. I think that's probably my big one. And yeah, I think it's probably the main thing for me.
Yeah, I really liked everyone's segment with taking on a witch, especially Gennaudio's punching one in the face and like crumpling it as it's like flying. Pretty fun. Also, the other one flying. Witches should not try to fly. Apparently, they just get messed up. Yeah, and then me just getting to be on my bullshit like normal is just always pleasant. Yeah, and I also really liked being put in danger with the son. I can't remember his name, but I thought that was just really fun, just because there's the tension of
Over, yeah.
like, yeah, of like not being. I know that I can't like hurt him, and so it just feels like more tense, even more than like hit points, because you're like, I know that I'll be ineffectual against this person, and they're pretty scary with their arm or leg knife or whatever.
This is a knife as long as a leg.
Yeah. Yeah, which is very long.
It is.
And wish, I'd like to figure out what I want from my custom move. I can't think of something, but I'm getting quite close. I just marked another attribute up, and I'm 3 along the track, and I just have those 2 left, but I'm not sure what Ives would want for fictional positioning. So maybe explore that next session or something.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say what another thing about the Obert thing, which I think is interesting, is you were being targeted because of Most Beloved, right? Like that's just a consequence of that like haunts the character, which I think is kind of fun. Like the figs aren't going to terrorize anyone else, right? Like it's just you whenever they get a shot. So I just kind of like that kind of dynamic. Yeah, sorry, I just want to throw that in there.
I was impressed by the action scenes overall. I thought they went really well. Sarah's rejoinder for Willoughby of "no one knows my real name anyway" was just the right kind of sort of bitterness to, for me, counterpoint to the earlier scene where they almost touched hands with Mr. Gennarius but did not. The sort of play between their relationship and then Willoughby's identity or lack thereof was really quite excellent. Drew the buffalo head painted. It's just a cow head with like a buffalo. I kind of want one now. Like have it hanging in the house. Some false buffalo head. And then what can go wrong? You said they kill a god tonight. That was excellent. And the ectoplasm to Obert's face, for me, is not just a star but also a wish, because I'm picturing Obert walking the streets of London at night, trying to get lost in the crowds, but like little tendrils of glowing wisps are coming up above the crowd, revealing his position, and he realizes he needs to put on a bowler, and then that's sort of drooling out down the side of his face or something at inopportune moments. To me, that's kind of a wish to see that ectoplasm reappear somehow.
Yeah, I'll have to make a note of that. That's pretty good. I also was going to say, I was reminded of that when you're talking about Willoughby, about like Willoughby and identity. I like that we got to see, it didn't really happen, but I like to see that we got to this moment where Willoughby almost didn't exist, right? I thought that was kind of fun.
That's certainly been a star for me personally as a player, to kind of explore that unexpectedly being thrust into a spiritual realm. That's not something my character delved into a lot of. It's I'm much more practical minded than that. So as I start to become haunted by these other worlds and this, astrological cult and things like that, that's been a lot of fun to see all that unfold. I second the ectoplasm to the face. I really do. I imagined it a little bit more like unscrewing the jar and throwing a drink in his face, but it's me.
Like Betty Davis, like
Yes. Yes.
hurling at Olivia de Havilland's face or whatever. Yeah, it's good.
I also have to say a star is, as we continue to play through more of these scenarios and more of these mysteries, I am enjoying the Gothic horror tour. Like, you really did a very nice job of flavoring each of these, of like, well, now we're on a cannibalism kick, and well, now we got to deal with ghosts, and here are witches. And so I feel like all of that's very well thought through, and it's been a lot of fun to play. Wishes, I don't really have anything in particular either. I think as it goes on, we'll continue to have more fun with it.
I think that's everybody, right?
Yeah, I had one more star actually. Was the gardens really felt like, I said in the chat, eyes wide shut, where like weird things are normalized and normal things are like made strange.
Oh, at the Crystal Palace, you mean?
Or a Crystal Palace, yeah. Where yeah, so then it kind of like, just having that association pop up in my head made it like all feel very Kubrick looking in my head when things were happening. So
It did for me too. I missed that in the chat, but it did for me as well. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Fantastic. Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna stop the recording.